What's up, everyone? And today I'm bringing to you my Fabled Danger deck profile. Now, Fabled is a very interesting archetype. It works kind of in a similar way to Infernities, but not so much when by having no cards in your hand, but by when the cards are discarded from your hand, which makes it work well with the Dangers. And I actually added a little bit of a new spice to this deck. Sure, the Fables and Dangers aren't too bad, but you really ain't going to get a whole lot. Maybe you can go into a Baron de Fleur, maybe an Apollosa, but that's kind of if you're lucky. And even then, a simple Dark Roller, Imperm, and Droplet will just completely get rid of that. I'll even Effect Veiler will. So I run a really cool spice that you're going to want to wait till the end to see. So without further ado, let's get right into the deck profile. First, I run 3 Fabled Raven. Raven is really cool because once per turn you can discard any number of cards, and if you do, this card gains 1 level and 400 attack for each discard card until the end of this turn. And it is a tuner, so that can be somewhat good, but since there are a lot of Fables that have effects when they are sent to the graveyard, Starlight can even special summon themselves from the grave. I also run 3 Fabled Grimro. If you control a face-up Fabled monster and this card's in your hand, or you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to add 1 Fabled monster from your deck to your hand. So let's say you got a Raven on the field and Grimro in hand. You can just discard Grimro to add one of your other Fableds. Also run the 3 Fabled Crust. Not really too great in your opening hand, but any other time it's just going to be really good because whenever it's discarded to the graveyard, you can add 1 level 4 lower Fabled monster from your graveyard. Or you can target 1 level 4 lower Fabled monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Next, I run 3 Fabled Duri, 3 Cherubal, 1 Ganesha, and 1 Abanok. Now all these, when they are discarded to the graveyard, can special summon themselves, which is really cool. So if you hit them off of a Danger or off of the effect of Fabled Raven, they're just going to special summon themselves right back. Also run 3 Danger Nessie. Yeah, I run a pretty heavy Danger engine just with how Fabled work. 3 Bigfoot, 1 Jackalope, 1 Tsuchinoko, 3 Mothman, 3 Chupacabra, 1 Dogman, and 1 Ogopogo. Yeah, a lot of Dangers. And you definitely want to see, like, let's say 2 to 3 Dangers in your opening hand. That's definitely the ideal. Then you can really get started going because basically almost whatever you discard is going to be perfectly fine. I'd say you don't want to discard Grimro or Raven, but if you end up discarding Raven, that's not really going to hurt you too much. And now next for the spice, 1 Slifer, the Sky Dragon. Now you're probably looking at me and wondering, like, why is there a Slifer the Sky Dragon in this deck? Well, if you don't know about the one of the new cards that came out in the Megatons, it's really good. I've been trying to find ways to put it into decks because not only does that trap card allow you to draw 6 cards, but you can essentially special Slifer from graveyard. And essentially any deck that can get too Curious has a really good play with it. Considering if Curious is linked someone, you could just send a card to the graveyard. Now, the one thing with Curious is that they all have to be monsters with the same attribute, but different types. aka Dangers. Like, they're all darks, but their types are different. You know, like Sea Serpent, Beast Warrior, Fiend, Insect. I think that's like Beast Warrior, or something like that. And worst comes to worst, you could just use the Fables to go into an IP Masquerade, which is another Dark Cybers, which none of these are Dark Cyber. Moving on to spells, I don't really have a lot. I got the 1 Pot of Avarice, the 1 Foolish Burial, and the 1 Monster Reborn. Pot of Avarice because I send so many cards to the graveyard. Foolish to get Slifer into the grave, and Monster Reborn, halfly because of the Revived Sky God's effect. Now, I actually was running I was running the 3 Pot of Avarice, but I kept running into scenarios where I'd have, you know, like 2 Pot of Avarice and a Sky God and a Traptrigger and a Foolish, and then 1 Fabled. Can't really do much with that hand. So I wanted to keep the number of spells and traps pretty low. Moving to the traps, I got 3 of the Revived Sky God. This card is insane. So the activation of this card or its effects cannot be negated. And then you special summon 1 Slifer, a Sky Dragon from your graveyard. Then each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand. Then you can banish this card from your graveyard to place 1 Monster Born from your deck or graveyard on top of your deck. Then if a Divine Beast monster is in your graveyard, draw 1 card. Yeah. Now, there's one ruling with this is that your opponent has to attempt to draw a card. So if you go first and they start with 6 cards in their hand on their turn, you can't just immediately use Sky God. They have to at least, use a card. But then again, they're going to be adding 1 card. You're going to be adding maybe 6. So it's not really too much of a disadvantage. Not to mention you put them under the Slifer stun, because Slifer has a cool effect too. Any monster summoned loses 2,000 attack, and if their attack reaches 0, they are destroyed. So your opponent can't really do much if Slifer's on the field, which will buy this deck enough time to, in the next turn, just OTK more or less. And I also run 2 Trap Trick to help me get to the revived Sky God. Moving on to the extra deck, I run 1 Fabled Reagan. When this card is secret summoned and you have 1 or less cards in your hand, you can draw until you have 2 cards in your hand. I also run the 1 Enwraith. If this card is special summoned, your opponent can discard 1 card to negate this effect. Otherwise, you can draw 2 cards, then discard 1. If a monster is sent from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, you can target one of those monsters special summoned to your field but negate its effects. So it can be kind of like a monster born in a way. That's the closest comparison I could come up with. Also run the 1 Metal Marcher, 1 TG Hyper Librarian, 1 Dawn Dragster, and 1 Baron de Fleur. Now, rarely are you going to really go into these, because you don't really, outside of, let's say, maybe Apollosa, Saryuja, and Curious, you don't really go around into your X deck too much, but because we play Dangers, we can't play Pot of Prosperity or Extravagance. Also run the 1 Abyss Dweller, good for those tier limits. I run 2 IP Masquerena, if anything, just because it's a Darkling 2. I run 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Unicorn. If you want Curious, definitely gotta have this, because whenever it's thing summoned, you can bullish a card from your deck, which is basically how you're gonna get Slifer into the grave. Also run the 1 Axis Code Talker, 1 Appaloosa, and 1 Saryuja Scoldred to round out the extra deck. Let me know, what do you think of Fables? Do you think they're pretty cool? Do you think the Slifer stun piece is pretty cool? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.